What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Vallone's RC Hobby. And in this video, I want to talk to you about vintage RC and new RC. I'm going to give you the pros and cons of both. Let's get to it. So if you were like me, I grew up in the vintage RC world back in the 1980s. If you want to see my intro video that I put out last week, starting this channel, I give you a brief breakdown of what I used to have. And I used to have the Tamiya Falcon, the Tamiya Monster Beetle, the Tamiya Blackfoot, but then I even had some Kyosho stuff. And Kyosho and Tamiya were the very popular ones back in the 80s, and they're still very popular. But these were the choices. And you did have some other side companies that did put out other RCs, like there was the Royal Crusher, the Big Bear by Mari, I think it was called. And these were some side companies trying to get and segue their way to compete against these. So someone of my age, I need to have a repertoire. I need to have a lineup of vintage and new. And this only evolved and transitioned into this when I got back into the vintage. I've had these on the shelves for quite a while now, and my dad last year said, hey, why don't you take them off the shelf and get them going again? And I definitely feel like I need to have these to look at, to reminisce, and to drive occasionally. You need to be careful. Here's the cons of owning the vintage. The vintage are vintage, right? So they're all plastic for the most part. And these are not bashers to say you got to be pretty conservative with them. Yeah, you can knock around with them out back and in your driveway or something like that. I'd like to stay conservative with them because you know what? They're going to break. And when they do break, the parts to get for these cars can actually be more expensive sometimes than the later cars that you see here. Now, I picked up, this is the Team Associated Trophy Rat, which was a really cool truck. Short course truck. I put some Duratrax tires on it, and I love the chassis layout of that thing. I love the way that thing is built. It is so durable. It's just phenomenally made. I have the Red Cat Racing Shredder here. I put some bigger tires on that as well. As you can see, same Duratrax tires. I felt like the new tires that came on the truck were a little weak. I mean, they're good, but as far as upgrades, this is what I did to this truck. But I would say that is about it you want to do with this truck. As far as upgrades, anything else that I did after that, the truck started to kind of self-destruct. And of course, the King, the Armor Creighton 8S. I do love this truck, guys. I mean, the way these things are built today, I'm just completely fascinated with the technology and the aerodynamics and just the engineering that is involved in the stuff today compared to what I used to mess around with. Now, again, in the 1980s, this was the coolest thing going, guys. I mean, it was just really, really fun. Now, here's the pros and cons. I'm going to kind of break it down for you, and I'll try to be quick here. I'll try not to be too wordy. But, these vintage RCs, even the re-releases, I mean, the pricing on these things are very comparable, and sometimes even more money than, say, getting a newer RC, which is still, kind of perplexing to me. But, if you can find a Tamiya Falcon on eBay in pristine condition, a guy who restored it, or you see the unopened box, it's never been built, holy cow, man, these cars, I've seen them up, they're asking sometimes $700, $800, $900. Now, as for a car, basically, you're going to look at. You're going to put it up on the shelf, and you're going to reminisce. Yeah, you can go ahead and drive it, but then if you break things, it's going to be kind of costly. I actually had to get the new A-arms here, the shock towers, because they all broke. But thankfully today, Ampro Engineering and there's 3D printing going on, there's Shapeways, and you can get these parts. But again, I would still be rather conservative with them. And there's not a re-release of the Falcon, so you put a beefier motor in the back and you want to go brushless or something, you're just going to tear up that gearbox. So I don't recommend that. And then even with the Monster Beetle, or say even the Blackfoot, again, they're the same chassis. They use these chassis throughout the Tamiya family. And again, these arms in the front are known to break. The point where the shock mounts to the the knuckle here, I mean, that usually breaks. So, you just got to be kind of conservative with them. They can't be as aggressive as these, of course. So, but here's the cool thing about the vintage stuff is that they seem to be going up in value as opposed to down. When you run these things, again, be careful. But, when you invest into these trucks, they seem to be going up in value. And if they do stop the re-releases and they put that up on the shelf, they're only going to go up even more. I mean, I see original Monster Beetle boxes on eBay. They're asking, some of them I've seen up to $1,000 unassembled. So really, really cool. And if you are getting back into the RC, or you have a son, or you have a child, or a member of the family that wants to get into them, the one great pro also to the vintage RC is that you build these things. That was the one thing I do remember, was back in the day with my grandfather and my father, we would sit on the kitchen table with all the little screws, all the little tools, and building these things. And there's something about that is really, really nice, guys. And I think, in today's world, I think kids need to get their hands physical, so to speak. They need to get their hands dirty, so to speak. Build something, because now all of a sudden it's personal, and it comes to your heart. And then when the car is completed, you put your hands on this thing and you actually built it yourself, and it's very rewarding. It's kind of similar to the way it is with my other business with the vintage Volkswagens. I can get a bug that looks like this, and then I build it and restore it, and then it comes out looking like that baby in the back. Or something like this paint job of this blue car. Similar to these RC cars, when you actually build this, and this is how I learned to wrench things, to screw things, and learn how, make your mistakes of stripping and breaking things, because it's only going to make you more creative, and it's going to make you actually appreciate the vehicle, as opposed to just, today's day where they are ready to run. There are some kits today that you can assemble. Maybe they come without electronics, but for the most part, these cars are ready to run. That is a positive on the vintage side, is that you actually build it. And I think it's very rewarding, and it's very nice to be with your father, your grandfather, or something like that, to actually build these things. That's one thing I will remember for the rest of my life, is working on this with my grandfather, who's now passed. I remember 12, 15 hours one day we built this thing, and you put your own motors in and electronics and things like that. So really, really cool. But again, I just think that, be conservative with them. They are going to break. They're not going to be as fast. I do recommend getting the MIP differentials if you have the Monster Beetle or the Blackfoot, something like that. Get those MIP gearboxes, because then you can go a little bit beefier motors. I know guys are then putting brushless systems in these things, and they take off. They're self-destructing. So just be careful of that. Kyosho Double Dare, the same thing. There was no re-release on this, and every time I seem to run this thing, things seem to break, even though I kind of run it easy. And again, Kyosho Double Dare stuff is pretty expensive on eBay as well. Now, when you get into the newer stuff today, which I think is, like I said, I think it's incredible. I mean, we have a little gem of a car right here, which I'm having such a blast with, and that is the wltoys here. I mean, there's a lot of reviews online. There's a lot of people who bought this car for $75. I mean, I was able to get a coupon on Banggood, $72, $75. Just so well built. I mean, just comparing, look at this from 30 years to this sucker, which I remember paying, again, close to $300 to get this kit with batteries and controllers and such, and it's all plastic. It's a tub chassis, and you could just feel how flimsy it is. And even the shocks, they're okay. Look, they don't even go up. I gotta work them here a little bit more. But this, just beautiful thing, beautiful piece of little engineering. I know it's not much, so I bought two of them. So just a wonderful piece here, and this is what you have today, and we should be really grateful that we have this at our fingertips. And just like that, right out of the box, it's ready to go with the battery and such. Just ready to run for $70, $75. I think after I had all shipping and stuff, it was $150 for the two cars. Just nothing. So, and then here's a trophy rat, and like I said, the great thing about these cars is that they're ready to go. They're so durable. They're so quick. Again, I'm not one to modify like crazy, because I feel like these cars here are ready to go the way they are, and they designed and engineered them to be ready to go just like that out of the box. I know, guys, you want to start, modifying them and launch them 30, 40 feet in the air. I'm not one to do that. I like to be conservative with my cars. They are investments here. Money can start piling up and you start breaking things. And then I did notice a lot of guys who, once they start breaking these cars, they put them on the shelves and they never fix them. So you know what? I like to fix all my cars. I like to make sure all my cars on my shelf are running and going. But just beautiful stuff that's going on today. But again, once you start running these cars, they go down in value, right? And many times we want to then sell these cars. And what do? You have Letgo, you have Facebook Marketplace, you got eBay that you're putting them up, and you're not going to get your money back as if it's a brand new item, of course. These vintage cars, on the other hand, you can make money. I see guys that have full-time businesses on the internet buying and restoring the vintage RCs and then selling them and making money and having a decent living at it. So pretty cool. But with these newer things, I always feel too, if you want to modify a car or get something faster or get something bigger, more bold, you know what? A month later, there's going to be another car that hits the market. That's what I find fascinating. I mean, unlike when I grew up, cars did not get released as fast as they do today. In technology today with iPhones and technology with computers and things, there's new upgrades to stuff, new products almost every month, every week, or whatever the case may be. So, if you want a faster vehicle, I wanted to upgrade my shredder, but then, shortly after, bam. I mean, you had this sucker come out, and I said, why keep upgrading this? Which, once I started doing some upgrades, it started to shred the diffs. Just go and get something big and badass like that. It comes out just a few months later, or maybe even a month later. So there's new stuff all the time, and I like to just kind of keep things the way they are at this point in my little career here that I have with RC cars. And I think it's a wonderful, wonderful hobby. And if you have a newcomer now, one of the things I did want to point out is if you want to reminisce and say you want to go back to vintage styling of RCing, there are plenty of cars on the market today to give you that little taste. So I even picked up last year, I don't have it on the table anymore because I did sell it, was the arm of Voltage, the Granite Voltage, $100. And you know what, when I was racing around with that car, it reminded me of racing around with the Monster Beetle and the Blackfoot. Okay, and then even this car here, this thing is pretty quick. I'm doing 30 miles an hour stock out the box without even any upgrades on it. But it still reminded me of racing around with the Tamiya Falcon. So there are cars on the market. I even picked up that Zinalong car. It was a four-wheel drive truck. They said it's 110, but it's actually more like a 112 scale. And I picked that up for my little niece, and you know what? It drives just kind of like a Monster Beetle or a Blackfoot, but more durable. And you can, hit a curb and flip it around, and it's not going to break. You're not going to be, cringing when it lands. So here's pros and cons of vintage and new. The new technology I think is phenomenal, guys. You can pick up stuff right out the box and start racing around. But there is something rewarding about building your own vintage RC and getting it up on the road and then driving it a little bit. But then again, it's something I like to just reminisce, and I'll walk by it and think back to the 1980s, the early 1990s when I had these cars and when I was going to school, and I had not a care in the world. There was no tech back then, there was no internet, there was no cell phones, and we escaped, my friends and I, we went up into our block, our cul-de-sac, and raced around with these things without a worry in the world. So pretty cool, guys. So if you guys have any questions, any comments, please leave them in the descriptions below. If I left anything out, just drop me a line, man. I'm open. Again, this is an open forum, and we want to be transparent. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, so every week when I come out with a new video, we can discuss things all RC. And again, this is to have fun. This is to be a kid again, and just, man, it's just wonderful that we have something like this at our fingertips. And with today's day, with the internet and placing an order and having it at our doorstep a couple days later, is just a wonderful, wonderful thing. So if you guys want to, like I said, add anything, leave it in the comments section below. And I will see you guys next time.